Welcome to the Hidden Why podcast, episode 1022. My interview with Mikki Willis discussing his book, Plandemic. Enjoy. Mikki, welcome to the Hidden Why podcast. Great to have you here today.
Thank you so much. Good to be here.
Really looking forward to this conversation. Mikki, you've got documentary, a book out as well now, Plandemic. A lot of our listeners may have heard of it and many others may not have. So looking forward to jumping into this conversation. And really to begin, Mikki, I'd love to hear your background story of how you got into your current work.
Well, I've been in film and entertainment for over 30 years and directed my first movie in the late 90s. And by the time it was finished, I was negotiating distribution deal, which led me to New York to negotiate this release of the movie. And just so happens that while I was there, the World Trade Center was attacked, and I ended up doing search and rescue and body recovery for 3 days. And it was a life-changing experience that had me unable to continue to do the work that I was doing in Hollywood.
So not doing film, but actually helping out on ground level.
Oh yeah, I was just there helping out, just digging for survivors, and it, you know, as you can imagine, we saw horrific things and the fragility of the human body and the material world, and it was just one of those snap to grid moments for me that had me realize that everything that I was in service to in Hollywood was doing nothing positive for mankind or for my future or for my children's future, which at the time I wasn't a dad, but I knew I wanted to be. And so I had to begin to contemplate what kind of legacy I wanted to leave behind. And it was clear that everything that I had produced up until that point, I asked myself a very pertinent question, which was, out of everything I've created, and I had a successful career, what would I be most proud to share with my children when I have children? And it was kind of a startling revelation for me, because I couldn't really think of anything. There were moments that I would show that were like cool moments and stuff I was proud of as a cinematographer or whatever it might be. But message-wise, I thought, most of the stuff I'd say probably wouldn't want my kids to see this. And so, just all of a sudden, the selling products that were bad for our people and for our planet, and degrading women in music videos, and all the stuff that was just kind of part of the expected work as a creative in Hollywood that everyone just kind of surrenders to and doesn't question, because everyone's searching for the next gig. So you stop choosing based upon, is this something that I want to say in the world? And you just choose based upon, is this going to advance my career? Is this going to put food on my table? And I just realized that kind of behavior I just couldn't participate in any longer. So I left Hollywood and fell in love with my now wife, and had children, and started a career that I could feel proud to share with my children, which I do now. I'm very proud of the work that's being done, and that my children are highly involved in my life, and I share everything with them, and I'm proud to do so.
It's got to be a hard decision to make, and I assume there's a lot of people in the world that have that battle. It's like a moral battle of what you're doing. Is it aligned with what is actually beneficial not only to you but to the world and to the public? Is it a positive, fulfilling role that you're undertaking?
Well, on that note, I would say the vast majority of people alive on this planet are experiencing that right now. And I think that's one of the many things that we're waking up to here in this Great Awakening, is to really evaluate the way that we have been led to become maintenance workers. And what I mean by that is everything's about maintaining. Let's just maintain our house, maintain our bills, maintain our life, and instead of really creating. And there's a vast difference through propaganda. We have been led to see ourselves as consumers, and that's even what we're called openly, as consumers. Used to be, one day, if you pay attention to the progression of our terminologies, you'll understand where things are headed. So two examples of that is, we were maybe called shoppers, or one day, back in the, Christmas shoppers, and now it's consumers. And the difference between a consumer and a creator is one is doing just that, consuming, and the other one is producing, is creating, and so when we take a look at that, the way that the other example would be, the way that celebrities or stars that's how we used to refer to them, and now they're influencers, and that's more true of how they're seen by the people that are running the show. Is they're influencers. They use them to influence. What do they mean by influencers? Well, they mean to manipulate the thought and the behavior of the rest of society. And the reason they call us consumers is because they want to wire us into this consumption mode where we just devour our planet and we create all the problems that then they can pretend to be in service to solving. And so we continue to vote for them because we're just these lowly consumers destroying our planet and our lives when we're actually meant to be creators. And so that I appreciate your comment, because this is the time that we come back into kind of rehumanizing and remembering why we came here and who we are and what we are. And that we all had dreams as children, and we somewhere along the line had, by design, abandoned those dreams, abandoned those purposes of why we chose to come here to experience this moment right now, this very precarious, challenging, but also incredible moment to be alive.
Yeah. I think a lot of people in life have these moments in their maybe late 20s and early 30s. I don't know what age you were when you sort of had that moment where you thought, you know what, I want to do something fulfilling, something purposeful, something that's creating, something that's giving back, so I can leave this world maybe in a better state that I found it. And maybe people have that feeling, but then how to escape that when you're locked into a system, like you said, that is about consuming and maintaining. We've got families to support, we've got houses to maintain, we've got, the next thing to chase. And we want to keep doing that because we feel like if we can keep working hard and have that next bigger thing, we're going to be above our neighbor. So to break free of that model is quite a challenge, wouldn't you think?
That's right. Yeah, it is. It is. And it's the thing that empowers us to do our biggest work on the planet, literally. We have to come back into our purpose and understanding that nobody comes here to just survive. This system is actually, and all of nature is designed to have us thriving in all ways. Our planet provides every bit of nutrient and food and everything that we need. Yet man has jumped into that and have distracted us and disrupted the natural flow of our evolutionary process. By trying to synthesize everything and digitize everything and make it something other than our organic, natural resources that are provided right there for us. I mean, it's astounding to me that we have lost touch with, just consider our food. And this can be traced back. If anyone has seen Plandemic 2, Indoctrination, we go through the birth of Big Pharma and how Johnny Rockefeller. What's that?
What was that?
In Plandemic Indoctrination, or Plandemic 2, which is on plandemicseries.com. All of our movies are on there for free for the people. But we spell out the birth of Big Pharma, and we show that John D. Rockefeller came into a system that was very organic and very healthy, that was really about healthcare and wellness. And as the owner of all of the oil in the United States, one of the, America's first billionaire, he was, decided to, when it was discovered that you could create medicines out of petroleum, he wanted to corner the market and created what a lot of people know in the West as Rockefeller medicine. And that was to demonize anything holistic or organic, to create these synthetic opioids, these drugs, these pharmaceutical drugs, and to get the whole world addicted and dependent upon them. And therein began this concerted effort to divide us from our nature. But when you just look at the way that it's almost as if Mother Nature knew that we were going to face this in this age, and it's almost laughable to see how evident she made it for us. That if you crack open a walnut, it looks like a mini brain, and there's two hemispheres, and that's brain food. And if a bell pepper has 4 chambers and looks like a heart, and it's heart food. And avocado looks like a womb with the seed in the middle, and it's for the cervix, for the womb. That you crack open a carrot, you look at it, it looks like the iris of an eye, and it's for your eyes. And they're all in primary colors too. So it's almost like, to the children, here's the food I've given for you and to you for your health, to help you be healthy and to evolve. And yet we have, we've managed to even process that food into an unhealthy state. And so the real goal for us is to return to our nature and to nature itself, as far as, in my opinion.
You talked about the Great Awakening. Do you see that happening right now? Do you, on a smaller scale, is it just at the infancy of it, or what is this Great Awakening?
Well, it's on a massive scale right now. It's the unintended consequence of COVID and all of the agenda to divide us and to control us and to have us surrender our civil liberties because we're scared enough to do so. It's a testament to how out of touch the leaders of that agenda are with the rest of humanity. The fact that they have pushed so hard and so clearly have failed in so many ways that even those who are ardent supporters of vaccinations are saying enough. Like, this is enough. I did what you said. I got 2 shots and 3, and now you're saying 1 booster, 4 boosters, whatever it is, 2 masks. I'm still not free. I'm still getting sick. Something is wrong. And so unfortunately, people have had to suffer to allow that to come to fruition here, to wake the rest of us up. But it is happening. It is happening. The people are waking up. It is the Great Awakening right now. They're starting to trust is a very, very critical human resource, and we've lost it in all directions. We've lost it for our political leadership, our medical leadership, our educational systems, all of it. And while that's a dangerous place to be in, with having no trust in our system, it's also an incredible opportunity, because then it begs the question internally for all of us. Well, then who's leading the show? And most people are arriving at the answer that no one's coming to rescue us, and we can't trust any of them. So it's us. And that's a very powerful, incredible place for us to evolve to, is realizing that we are in many ways to blame for what's happening right now, because we've enabled it. We've allowed it to happen through the years. We've slept through it. We've been, more focused on Game of Thrones and televised sports, and with, no
Guilty.
idea of who's running our local politics.
Yeah.
And now we're going, whoa, okay, now I understand what happened to my child. I've talking to so many parents weekly who are saying, I don't know what happened to my baby. She's 13 years old, and she's cutting herself. She doesn't know what gender she is. She says her parents are fascist, and America is built on race and hate, and she wants to die. And it's like she was completely fine 2 years ago. And so that's a real issue. And that's happening everywhere right now. And so a lot of parents are waking up to like, well, I'll ask them, I'll say, well, when you enrolled your child in school, did you go to meet with the teachers and ask them who they are and what they stand for? Well, no, who does that? I said, exactly. None of us do that, myself included. I do now. But it's like, we haven't done that. We've just said, sure, it's the closest school. It's most convenient, and comfort and convenience is a real issue. All these things that we've developed, fast food and all of this stuff, that's for comfort and convenience, and it's killing us.
Yeah.
All these things, microwaves and all these things that were supposed to make our lives easier, have done nothing but destroyed our health and taken more of our time. Do we have more time now with all these life-saving, time-saving devices? Do we have more time in our lives right now? No one has time right now. And that's by design, because when you don't have time to do anything but maintain your life, then you are forced to then follow other people for the guidance of your life and the direction of your life. And that is exactly what they want. They want us to not have time to actually file lawsuits, to research their information that the media is feeding us, to second guess our doctors and get a second opinion. We just go, look, I've already driven out here. The doctor says, take this pill. I take the pill or whatever. And then you find out later on that pill he gave you that said take as needed has now led you, good people, into an addiction. And I've worked for years with people with opioid addictions, and most of them tell me that same story. They say, I hurt my back at work, and the doctor gave me medicine, and it said take as needed, and I was in pain all day long. I took it all day long, and now I'm looking for heroin on the streets because they've cut me off. The medical industry's cut me off. Yeah, and they're good people with no prior history of any kind of drug abuse, and so it's like, at what point are we, the people, going to say enough is enough? Big Pharma, you've destroyed our lives, our loved ones, and you're now at the cause of one of the most horrific crimes against humanity. And we are going to stand up and say, we're done. We're not going to feed you anymore with our money. We're not going to allow you to own our media any longer, because they own everything. Big pharma is twice the size of big oil.
Yeah.
People need to let that sink in when it comes to lobbying power on Capitol Hill. Twice the size of big oil, the resource that literally fuels our world. Big pharma has twice that power and impact. And so that's why every politician and every news and media station will never hold them accountable.
Right. You're talking about the current climate with the COVID pandemic, or is it stemming back further than that to the opioid pandemic, which I believe is quite more of a pandemic where you are? Maybe not much as, here in Australia. I'm not too sure about that, but I have interviewed some people about that. How far are we going back to look at the start of this era?
Over 100 years.
Yeah? Yeah.
Over 100 years that this all began to start. And, medicine is a big thing. Their health is, people say the most important things are health and happiness. And if you don't have health, you don't have happiness. And so when it becomes our most primal, basic, intrinsic need, there's a lot of money to be made from that, because it's not just a want. It's not just the car industry where I want a nice car. It's I need health. We need that to live our lives in every aspect. We can't be successful business owners without good health. We can't do anything. We can have successful relationships because we're just worried about surviving. And so, this is one of the number one things for us to be aware of on this planet, that because health is such a critical necessity for humanity, it was co-opted, and it's the only industry that has zero liability. And the fact that some citizens aren't aware of this and the ones that are aware are okay with this is kind of mind-boggling. We would never settle for if Ford released an automobile that was, self-driving automobile that would lose control every now and then and just plow through, crowds of people and kill thousands of people. We would hold Ford incredibly liable for the production of that car.
Yeah.
But Big Pharma has total immunity from any kind of liability. So they can, what it creates is this, a clinical trial with humans is costly and dangerous for a pharmaceutical manufacturer, because if it doesn't pass clinical trial, they can't use the drug, and everyone who invested in it loses their money. And so when they don't have liability, it's actually, and I've interviewed whistleblowers that will say this, they say it's more convenient and cheaper and safer for us just to test on the American people, because we don't have to pay for it. We just put it out there. We'll do a clinical trial, and sometimes they do it in third world nations, like Bill Gates has been doing forever, in India and Africa and all over the place, people that don't matter in their eyes. And they'll do a big test and go, oops, that didn't quite work. Or maybe it did work. Who knows if that's their agenda. But, paralyzed and sterilized, 10,000 young ladies, and 7 people died. Oops, let's hide that information and pivot a little bit. But now we know. So they tested on the people, and in many ways, the COVID vaccines it's just a giant clinical trial with zero consent. None of us opted in to be part of this, but it's happening with a vaccine technology that my friend who invented it, Dr. Robert Malone, says is incredibly dangerous to be used this way. He invented it, won the Nobel Prize for it. Yeah. And he's out in the world and being smeared as some kind of quack.
Empiricist. Yeah.
He is, one of the most qualified, intelligent scientists on the planet, invented the damn technology. And so you would think above all, he would be the first person that we're all listening to. But now they're saying don't listen to him because he's going against the narrative. Right.
Looking into the COVID pandemic and the start of COVID, what's some of, I guess, it's your field of work, so you've probably, gone into there yourself, but what has drawn you into that? Is it just because it's now just snowballed what has been the history and it's just been built up to this, which is causing the Great Awakening?
Personally, for myself, and this full story is detailed in the intro of my book. I mentioned at the head of this, I have a book called Plandemic, Fear is the Virus, Truth is the Cure, that's out there that's doing very well. Yeah. And it's all in the intro of the book. But the short story is my brother was killed by a drug called AZT, which was an AIDS medication that was pushed hard in the world by Anthony Fauci and ended up killing tens of thousands of people and being
We don't hear about that.
incredibly harmful, AZT, and
AZT.
killed my brother. 34 days later, my mom was killed by bad cancer treatments. And so in my early 20s, that's a wake up. And so it's something that I never could forget if I wanted to. And so when I saw him at the helm of this plandemic, I was startled that he was still in power, because I knew what he had done in the 80s and 90s. I knew how bad the AIDS situation. There were so many lies told. There were so many good medicines that were prevented, just like, this happened in this situation with things like ivermectin, where they were pushed aside and demonized, and for these patentable medications that killed people and harmed people. And so I was aware that he did that. I wasn't aware that after that, everything else he oversaw, H1N1 and all these other outbreaks, same exact thing happened every single time. But when I saw him resurface for COVID, I was blown away that he was still in that position and being held, just like in the 80s and 90s. The thing that convinced my brother, because as soon as he started taking the medication, he got worse rapidly.
Yeah.
And so we all said, this is not good. Obviously, your body you look terrible. You're dying. And then he said, well, he'd turn on the TV and he'd see Anthony Fauci surrounded by Elton John and all these, Liza Minnelli and all these, heroes of that age, and just touting him as the savior. And so they said, well, my mom and my brother said, I guess we need to just stay on it, because they can't be wrong. They know more than we know, all the way up until he died, and then the truth came out and everyone started to share that, it was the medicine that killed them. Tons of people. And that's very well known and documented right now.
Right.
And so when I saw that...
And what period of time was that when the medication came out to the truth coming out?
I don't know exactly the time span, but it wasn't long, because at the moment people started taking it, they had all kinds of adverse reactions, and they buried it. It was much easier to bury then because we didn't have social media.
Yes.
And we had, just a handful of corporate networks.
Yeah.
We had CBS, NBC, and ABC, and whatever else was in existence at that time. But we didn't have citizens all over the world with the ability to do their own research with the internet. You have to go to a library and look things up, and who knows how accurate that information is and who actually wrote that. So it's a very different world now that we're in. I think that's one of the many ways that they've underestimated
what's happening now. Yeah.
Technology and the people, and to understand that you can't just lie the way you've always lied and expect for people to not look deeper. Some people are going to look deeper at that, and they're going to track the pattern, the patents. They're going to track all of that, and that's what we did in Plandemic Indoctrination. Is we, with the help of patent expert Dr. David Martin, who's been tracking this stuff since the late 80s, he has the entire paper trail. So we announced the stuff that's just now coming out 2 years later. We totally had the whole, traced it from, the NIH funding gain of function research to the Wuhan lab, and how they did it through Eco Health Alliance, through a cover organization. All that we released 2 years ago. And that's what we were totally banned from all forms of social media for this incredibly dangerous disinformation, they called it. And now through leaks and through whistleblowers and all that information is coming out. So every day I get messages of people saying, wow, turns out you guys were right. Well, we knew we were right. It wasn't a suspicion. It was, we have the paper trail. It's all hidden in patents. Patents are one of the places that all this stuff is hidden, because no one except for a few people like Dr. David Martin cares to read such difficult to read data and can understand it. But that's where everything is hidden within these patents. That's where they make their money. That's how they hide what they're really doing. And this guy, David Martin has he has the details of how it's all done, and everything he said in Plandemic 2, everything, 100% of everything, and actually both Plandemics has been validated. Yeah.
So you're saying that information's coming out now. I'm not seeing that information myself, but perhaps I'm not looking hard enough.
Really?
And I guess, yeah, potentially. maybe I
That's
turn a
interesting. I don't know
blind
how
eye
they're
to
shielding
this.
that. It's huge over here. I mean, have you seen the Project Veritas leaks that came from a military official that validated the back and forth
No.
regarding gain of function? Yeah, it's all over here in
So
the US.
talk to us about, I mean, the start of this pandemic. You're talking about the labs in Wuhan and gain of function technologies, which I believe, again, I'm ignorant to all this because I don't tune into it, perhaps to the extent you do. So maybe I'm isolated, but yeah, talk to us about the starting of that.
Of what exactly?
The gain of function and Wuhan and the starting of COVID.
Well, gain of function research is when they take an existing virus and they make it ultimately, in layman's term, more deadly.
Yep.
So that it will, the idea is, and it's not an insane idea, but it's a very dangerous practice. And the idea is, well, in the event that this virus learns how to be more lethal, maybe we should go ahead and advance that process of it so we can then develop the protection against it so that should it ever do this in nature, we are ready. Yeah. And so, that's a good idea, but a lot of scientists will say, no, it's actually not a good idea because the viruses, a lot of them wouldn't naturally do this without man manipulating them.
Right.
And so what is clear, and it was clear from the beginning, that when you talk with a real scientist, and what I mean by that is there's a lot of very qualified, educated scientists that are become pundits on the news media that are, for whatever reason, either they've been so indoctrinated. We have a tendency to just assume that somebody with the label of doctor or scientist is accurate because they have gone to school for a long time. But what we don't understand is majority of the medical schools are completely supported and funded by Big Pharma. Yeah. So the literature they receive, the speaking engagements they go on, a lot of doctors are just waking up to this, are all directly, but mostly indirectly funded by Big Pharma. So some of the doctors are the least informed of what's real. This is what people are just wrapping their heads around. There are mothers that are more informed than some of the top scientists because they've actually studied the truthful aspect of the way these vaccines affect the body. While the scientists have been so indoctrinated by Big Pharma propaganda that they're not bad people, but they're so misinformed that they stand strongly and they use their credentials to convince people of something that is actually incredibly wrong and incredibly deadly. Yeah. And this is what people are waking up to because they're seeing so many, Sanjay Guptas of the world, and all these people that we thought were really credible doctors, they're wrong. Every single week they come out and they say something and the studies are wrong. And what they're quoting, they're either incredibly corrupt or they're incompetent. And that's always the question, which side do they fall on? And the majority of the time it's that they're incompetent, that they have just been so led astray that they, and a lot of them are waking up to that now. I'm following a lot of doctors that are coming out to say, listen, a year ago, I shamed all of you for having this thought, for even questioning Anthony Fauci, for even questioning Bill Gates, for even questioning, and now the CDC or the WHO. And now we're seeing all through our industry here, we're all talking about it. We can't believe the mandates that are coming through the CDC. We can't believe at how they continue to move the field post. We can't imagine their logic for trying to vaccinate an entire population of children 5 years and older that are at almost zero risk. And almost zero risk, kids are at a high risk of having a reaction to eating peanuts. So there's a risk in everything that we do, crossing the street, everything that we eat. So when you say almost a zero risk, well, they have just as much of a risk to get more of a risk to be struck by lightning than they do to be harmed by COVID.
But see, this is the interesting stuff that still I don't feel people are waking up to, because it seems to be as clear as day to me and to a lot of people that I talk to. But then I look out there, and this is getting pushed upon us now. They've just made it so that 14-year-olds now can go out there without parental consent and get a vaccination.
Yeah. Well, that, it's
I mean,
both things
mainstream
are
media
happening.
is obviously, owned by Big Pharma, and
Yeah.
it's all a pushed agenda, but it doesn't seem to be that coming out.
Well, we also have the UK just announced, I believe it was yesterday, and Israel, I think the day before, that they're dropping all COVID mandates. And they actually came out in Israel, and I forget who it was that actually made it was their chief, COVID correspondent who came out to say we made massive mistakes with these lockdowns and the protocols. And they admitted that it's done more harm. And they're dropping protocols. It's happening all over the world. It just started this week.
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping
I heard about the UK.
Australia wakes up to that.
No, I do too, and I'm sure many other people do as well.
Yeah.
I mean, where do we? Because you see a lot of people that are saying, "Yep, I support the vaccinations," and I believe it should be rolled out to everyone because they follow the news and the scientists on the news and the reports from CDC. How do you uncover that for them? Because that's where they trust the science, and as soon as you start talking to those people, they would say, "Oh, you're just on social media. You're listening to fake." Experts and things like that.
Well, one of the most alarming things that I've heard this year is that almost half of the Democrats here in the U.S. are in favor of imprisoning people who are unvaccinated, finding them and actually locking them up.
Yeah.
And that is a very disturbing trend.
Is it happening?
What's that? It's not, well, it's happening in other places, happening in Australia, it's happening in Canada and a couple of other territories.
Locking people
it's
up.
happening here under guise. What's that?
Locking people up that are unvaccinated. You're saying it's happening?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Either that's in quarantine or being detained, being removed from airplanes, being thrown to the ground by police for having a mask down over the nose, under the nose. And the most horrific stuff is coming from your country. And I've seen the footage. I'm working with a lot of Australians right now. And I must have 2 or 3 meetings a week with people in different places of Melbourne and different territories in Australia.
Right.
And they send me videos of, people working out in a park, and they have an hour to work out. And if they don't, once they stop and take a rest from their jumping jacks or whatever it might be, the police roll up and cite them for standing in a park. And this, I've seen all the video. I've seen women thrown to the ground for saying, I have a medical exemption. I can't wear a mask. It's dangerous for me. And I have a video of a woman being thrown to the ground and arrested for that. And so, and you know what they're doing to your Aboriginal, your indigenous people, they're force vaccinating them. They're locking them up. You have camps in Australia where quarantine camps. And so you guys have been really a demonstration to the rest of the world of what they're eventually going to try in other places. But as
like
we said,
that
it isn't working. It isn't working. And I would imagine that it's only a matter of time. Thank God for the brave souls in Australia who have taken to the streets to raise their voices, because it is making a difference and it will continue to make a difference. And I just hope they stay peaceful and wise and don't fall into any kind of traps that can be used against them. But this is the time that we rise up and use our voices and let them know that it's, whether you're pro-vaccine or not, it's for me, when we allow the government to take control of our bodies, we're in deep trouble.
Yeah.
Because these things don't go away. They're used as leverage. And so here in America, when the World Trade Center was taken down, there was one dummy that went through a metal detector at an airport with some kind of explosive device in a shoe. And 20 years later, we all have to take off our shoes every time we go on a flight. So that one person created a policy, and that's conditioning. So all of that has been conditioning towards allowing authoritarians to tell us where to stand, when to take off our clothes, what to do, to be allowed to just move about freely on our own world, our own planet. And so these things are used to reduce our civil liberties, because the more you can get people into this compliant state, well, it's just for our safety. Yeah, I'll do this because it's just for our safety. Sure, I'll wear a mask or two, and I'll stay 6 feet apart from the people that I love, and I won't invite them over for holidays or anything. When you can get people to allow you to infringe upon their personal lives and enjoyments, their holidays with friends and family, when you can pit them against each other, which is happening all over the place, which is one of the most troubling things to see how many families I'm working with a man right now who's went through a divorce over all of this, and the wife took his 9-year-old and 11-year-old child and got them both vaccinated, and now the 11-year-old has myocarditis, was a track star, and can't run anymore. So it's creating enemies amongst people that once loved each other.
Yeah,
and this is the goal, and people need to wake up to that, because
I was about to ask you what the goal is of yes, we've got this vaccination, yes, we've got this virus that's now rampant in Australia too. But these mandates that they keep pushing and these control measures they keep changing, and that's where I agree, is that once they have these controls in place, you can't get it back. Those freedoms that you thought you had, and they keep dangling that carrot that we'll give you your freedoms back. That's just a sign of what is the big plan here? Is it to have more control so we can become even deeper consumers and cheap?
It is all about control, because the ultimate goal is for America to look a lot like communist China. And that's not hyperbole at all. It's already happening. How do you get 1.7 billion people, which is China's population? How do you get them to comply when they have so much more power than the 20,000 elite or so that run that nation? You're talking 1.7 billion people. Yet they are, they have social credit scores, which is part of the COVID passports and all that. They can't travel without permission. They're always watched, facial recognition, and they lose credit for not following the orders of the government. So the credit score, just like we have financial credit score. So you want to buy a house, they go and they say, well, what's your rating? And that makes sense, right? Because if I'm going to lend you $700,000 to buy a house, I want to look at your past record. If you're, delinquent on all of your payments and default and all of that, I'm not going to lend you $700,000 because you're going to do that to me. Yeah. So it makes sense to go, okay, you have a good credit score. You're a stand-up citizen with integrity, and I trust that I get this money back from you. So that makes sense. But social credit score means you talking to me right now, your score would go down. Yeah. Because you're talking to a guy who has done something that is not favorable to my local government. Yeah. And so you stand too close to somebody, you say something on social media they don't like, then they lower your credit score. And literally, this happens in China. You can go home and see an eviction notice on your apartment because you no longer qualify for it. So it keeps everyone in line. It's a complete control factor. Like, if I want to maintain my life, then I have to be a good citizen. I have to be obedient. Yeah. And it's reward and punishment. Process. And so that's what they're trying to do here by creating this division of classes. We have the unvaxxed and vaxxed, and they've pitted the vaccinated against us, even though the vaccinated are spreading the virus just as much, if not more, than the unvaxxed. They're still getting terribly sick. Right before this call, I just watched a video from some CNN anchor person who has been, double vaxxed and got COVID again, and was sharing his story of how horrible it was, how sick he was. He finally had to go to the hospital. And of course, what did they tell him? You would have died if you wouldn't have been vaccinated. Yeah. But people say, how do you know that? How do you know that? How do you know? Because a lot of people that get COVID once without being vaccinated, they don't get it again. They build up the antibodies and they actually don't get it twice. So the very fact that he got it so bad after being vaccinated twice should be enough for him to go, wait, why did that happen? And now you're telling me there's no way you could predict what kind of shape I'd be in. Maybe I wouldn't even be in the hospital if I hadn't been vaccinated. Yeah. But that's how they lie to everybody to say, oh no, you would have died. You need to be thankful for that vaccine. So they twist this guy's way of thinking such that instead of him coming out to say, I just want to share the truth here. I've been double vaccinated and I just got COVID and almost died. So that brings concern to me that this vaccine isn't working. Yeah. They don't want him saying that. No. So they twist the logic. They convince the doctors that this man would have died had he not been vaccinated. He has no way of knowing that. Yet he's out there now saying, go get vaccinated, because I would have died without that vaccination. No, maybe you wouldn't have been sick again at all had you not been vaccinated. And that's the truth that's actually leaking out there a lot. There's a lot of people comparing within their own family saying, half of my family's vaccinated, half is not. The half that isn't seems to be healthier. They didn't get it again.
Yeah.
The half that has had COVID 2-3 times. And it's been pretty, they say it's supposed to be less severe the second and third time. Some of them are saying it was many times worse.
Yeah, wow.
And they're comparing this within their own bloodline, saying they're doing their own studies. And I'm speaking to these people and they're going, okay, I'm way pro-vaccine, but the fact that this is what's occurred in our family, and then they'll talk about other related family members, and they're like, if they're having the same experience, who's looking into this?
But see, this is the problem. As people, we no longer use our logical processing and give ourselves that time to think and actually critically think about what's going on. I mean, I can see it now. I've actually know people now, which I hadn't known for 2 years. I know people now that have COVID. And I know a lot of people who have been double vaxxed that have COVID. And it seems like those people seem to be getting COVID, whereas a lot of the unvaxxed people I know aren't getting it. Now, that could just be in my circle, and fair enough. It may not be an accurate indication of what's happening out there. But then if you look at the figures from the public saying 85, 90% of the population have had their double vaccination, yet here we are with 100,000 COVID cases. Well, something's not right there. Something's not adding up in my brain. And yet people are still stuck on the media and listening to what the media is saying. And, hey, no, we need a third dose. And then the narrative keeps changing. And so does their narrative. Oh, well, it's just that we need our booster now. It's delayed. And the saga
last Saturday, I met with a group of whistleblowers in Phoenix, Arizona. And they all had a very similar story to share with me. And that is they left their hospitals because they bear witness to very serious crimes against humanity. And one of that is they said, it is absolutely evident that the hospitals are trying harder to save those who are vaccinated and to actually allow the unvaccinated to die, to support their theories, to support their belief system. And they told me direct stories of where there would be 2 patients exactly in the same state of health condition, and they would permit the one that's vaccinated, they'd give them much more attention. They were much more attentive. They would feed them, give them the right nutrients, the right food, the right medication to save them, keep them off the ventilator. They wouldn't offer remdesivir. And then another lady who was in the same health condition, and they just completely neglected her, didn't feed her, didn't give her any of the proper medication, and put her on a ventilator. And they said, and then the thing that was most disturbing to me is this one nurse told me that she then overheard them laughing in the back room about what they were doing, a doctor and a couple of nurses. And they were literally, she said they were laughing. They thought it was hilarious that they were starving this woman to death and waiting for her to die, and they couldn't believe how long it was taking. And when you hear enough of those stories, and when they are told in such a way that's so credible, and you hear them enough, you say, what happened? What has happened to people? People who took an oath to do no harm. How do you keep
mentally resilient? I mean, that's your work you're doing, and I applaud you for the work you're doing, because I think it's important that someone has the courage like you to stand out there and interview all these people, and all the people you speak to too. Courage for them, and applaud them for speaking to you. I think that's a very difficult thing, like for me and my family and people that I know, to come out and be okay with sharing how you feel about the current situation is very hard for a lot of people. And rather than doing that, a lot of people just tag the line and say, oh, I'm just going to get vaccinated and just slot in, to keep my job, to go on a holiday or whatever. I'm just going to slot in and just pretend I don't know. And that's really hard for a lot of people to do. So I applaud you for doing that.
Thank you.
But how do you maintain that mental resilience and this hope for humanity that will come to the truth?
Well, the real answer to that is because I have a unique perspective to take in this situation from, and that is, as a storyteller, I've studied human mythologies for many, many years, and the work of Joseph Campbell, The Hero's Journey.
Yeah.
And in short, it has led me to understand that there's an unfoldment of the human narrative that we've been telling each other since the beginning of time. And so what I've recognized is there's a commonality in each of these narratives. And the work of mythology, of the mythos that have been scribed on our cave walls and told around campfires long before we had any technologies, they all have a very similar thread to them. And it's a formula that Hollywood borrowed decades ago. And every iconic movie, any movie worth remembering, follows this formula. And it kind of devolved into a three act play, they call it. So most movies have 3 acts, and there's a structure. And the movie typically features what I would call a reluctant hero, someone that is trying to save themselves or the world. And it could be a very small thing, but it's big to the hero, or it could be a giant catastrophe that's literally saving planet Earth. And they're suddenly confronted with this as an everyday average citizen. And they go off on a journey trying to find help, trying to find the savior. And they learn their lessons along the way that encourage them to finally see themselves as the one. They're told that the force is within. And they are faced with what Joseph Campbell would call the dragon, which is a metaphor for that thing that is threatening your existence. And they finally have to face the dragon. And they don't think they have the ability to, they don't think they're the one until they finally are faced with life and death, where they are almost killed by the dragon. And then something rises in that reluctant hero that has them remember who and what they are, and that they actually came just for this reason. And so in answer to your question, I know that I came here just for this reason. And my job is to help others to wake up to remember that they too came here just for this reason. This is not something that's happening to us. It's happening for us. As horrific as it is, I know there's a lot of people that are suffering. I don't mean to be insensitive to that, but there's divinity in everything, in every tragedy. There's something divine. I mean, we're all old enough to look back at our lives and remember that some of the events in our life that appear to be most tragic, our first heartbreak, the death of our first beloved pet, or our relationship. We look back now, it almost seemed unsurvivable at the time, but now most of us can look back in retrospect and say, what a blessing.
Yeah, absolutely.
What a blessing. Look what it taught us, look what it did. And so it's our job to understand, to stop resisting what's happening right now, to accept it, and to know that we're going to look back collectively on this moment and say, what a blessing. I got to be here. What a privilege, what an honor it was that I chose this point in time and space to come to participate in this great awakening. So what part are you playing is the question. Yeah.
I love it, mate.
Awesome.
I appreciate you sharing it. I know I've taken up more of the time that I promised, but thanks for coming on. And
I appreciate your time.
We'll share this out there with everyone. Guys, you can check it out at thehiddenwhy.com. How can people, Mikki, best find out about your work? Is it plandemicseries.com? Is that the best place to go?
Plandemicseries.com. We share everything through there. Sign up for the newsletter that's on there, because that's where we share everything first with all of our community. And then we have a Telegram channel, which is official Plandemic on Telegram. And we also share everything through that resource.
Official Plandemic. Yeah.
Hang in there, Aussies. It's going to get better.
Yeah. Good message, mate. Thank you very much for your time, guys. Check it out. Until next time, The Hidden Why Podcast. See you soon. Thanks, guys, for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed what you heard. I hope you love what you're hearing. If you like this episode, guys, or any of the episodes that you're listening to here at The Hidden Why, please do me a favor by sharing it. You can share it with your families. You can share it with your loved ones. You can do that by using your favorite social media channels, using the icons on the platform that you're listening to The Hidden Why podcast. Also, guys, if you're a fan of the show, please connect with me. Connect with me at thehiddenwhy.com. I love to hear from you. I love to converse with the people that listen to this show to find out what they enjoy, what they don't enjoy, and perhaps if they have any questions or feedback for the show as well. You can stay up to date with all that I'm releasing here, guys. I do a solo show every Monday, a 3-minute thought every Thursday. I do 2 interviews a week on a Wednesday and a Saturday, and a book review every Friday. You can stay up to date with all that by subscribing to my newsletter at thehiddenwhy.com. Just enter your email address there, and also subscribing to the podcast on the platform that you choose to listen to your podcasts. You can also support the show, guys, by using the Amazon links at thehiddenwhy.com. So if you like books, you can get all the books that I review there, and anything else really that you like to purchase through Amazon. So use that link and help support the show. And we've also got a deal with Audible, guys. Audible is a fantastic way to listen to all your favorite books. We've got a deal with them so you can get 2 free books when you subscribe, or subscribe to a 30-day free trial. So check that out again at thehiddenwhy.com. Guys, that's it from me. You know what to do. Go out there, breathe more passion into every single moment. Do everything with greater purpose. And in doing so, you will discover your hidden why. This is The Hidden Why. My name is Lee Martinuzzi. Until next time, peace, passion, and purpose. See you soon.